Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Superhero Rewind Commentary Project. It is I, Captain Logan, and joining me tonight, as always, is my sidekick, Austin. And tonight, Austin and I are going to do kind of an odd, in a way, off-the-beaten-path movie, only because it's not one that everybody always thinks of as a superhero movie, but having watched it again, it absolutely counts. I just won't even entertain the notion that this is not a superhero movie, and it'll be hard not to make the whole hour and 40 minutes just all of the evidence supporting this idea. But we are, in fact, tonight doing Disney's Hercules, which Austin
honey, you mean Hercules.
Which is the only one, naturally, I think, of the like classic animated Disney movies that would count for a superhero rewind, would come anywhere close to a superhero rewind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Disney does, in fact, have other animated superhero movies that we will do, like Big Hero 6. Why I say animated and otherwise, because Disney is, I think, also Sky High, and like there are superhero movies that Disney made that are not MCU things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's. Oh no, they've done what was that, like Brave? I think, is that the dog one?
No, are you talking about Bolt?
Bolt. That's what.
Brave is the.
Oh, that's the Pixar movie.
Is the Pixar movie about the Scottish archer? I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Is it Scottish, Celtic in some way? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Scottish. Yeah.
I saw that once and I liked it, but I don't remember anything about it. Have you ever seen that? It's pretty good, but I don't remember it very well.
I've not. No, that was, I think, like the first big one that people were like, I don't know about that, and I was kind of already in a bad place with Pixar because we just had Cars 2, and I don't like Toy Story 3, so I was like, I'm gonna skip it.
You're kind of done.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. But this is a movie that I had not gone back to in a lot of years, Austin. When I was a kid and this came out, like I'm 13 when this comes out, and so I was there for the whole Disney Renaissance. I saw almost all of that in the theater, and this was around the place where these started losing me. And not to get too far ahead of ourselves or get too much into my feelings on this. I enjoy this a lot better as an adult than seeing it as a kid. I think some of it is in a weird way, because obviously this is not the story of Hercules. I think being able to separate myself from that, where like I had more of an investment in that at the time. First of all, we were in high school. I was kind of, I don't want to say huge into Greek mythology, but like I liked Greek mythology. I studied it a decent amount in junior in high school, especially. I took a whole semester on epic poetry, or epic poetry. Pardon me. I mean, that was in there, but on it was called epic tradition. It was like a lot of it was the big Greek epics, and so you got into the Iliad and the Odyssey and all of that stuff, and that was right around when the best translations for those came out too, so it was like a really good time to get into that. But I was also a big fan of the Hercules and Xena TV shows, which are cheesy and don't hold up at all, but are certainly much closer to actual Greek mythology than this is. And this came out during the heyday of those, and so I had a hard time not kind of dragging my feet to it, going, well, it's Disney-fied. They don't care about what Zeus was really like. They don't care about the actual mythology and the story in the actual myths of Hercules. And it's easier to divorce myself from that now and to appreciate it as a like modern superhero movie, just kind of using that material and like twisting it into what like 20th century comics would do with it. And somehow I didn't appreciate that at the time. It didn't even dawn on me that that's what they were doing. I don't remember noticing any of the Superman parallels or anything, because I was just kind of sitting there going, okay, but you're putting out a Hercules thing at the same time as a very popular TV show that knows what Hercules is, and it bothered me.
No, that's basically exactly what it is. Like, it takes Hercules as a title and goes, okay, like, let's make our superhero movie, like let's make the modern day myth, and in that way it's cool. If you're expecting just Hercules, then you're going to be disappointed. So I get that, because it is in no way related to that story.
Well, and like I think it's actually disingenuous to say it's not related. It's almost like in a weird way like a modern parody of it or something, right? Because like it's got a lot of fun references and things to the mythology and the lore and all of the background. Like what's neat about it is it does have a lot of reverence for Greek and Roman history and myth. It's just all in the comedy and it's all in the background. And what I was going to say earlier is
They're like Easter eggs.
yeah, in a really weird way, I think I also appreciate this more having studied more Greek and Roman history, because I took Latin in school and I did not that I remember any of it now, and I did a lot of Roman history and stuff, and so on a humor level, there were jokes I got this time around that I didn't appreciate before. That made me laugh. So I appreciate that there's no pretension about it. Like there's no it's not trying to like make you think it's doing definitive Hercules.
No, exactly. But it is also like right at the end of that era where Disney is more willing to kind of adopt things into their Disneyified style,
Yeah.
where it's like they're trying to go for like a more classic Greek look, and then Mulan the year after will take some like traditional Chinese art and like work it in. Now we're at a point where it's just all homogenized; they all look the same.
Yeah,
But like we were still in that period where we were kind of adopting ideas and things to adapt whatever they're doing.
yeah. It's interesting how it takes the look from a lot of like Greek vase art. Or I guess after this movie, I'm supposed to say vase art. Yeah, that always makes me laugh every time. It's really good. But anyway, we'll get into the movie here in a second, guys. But yeah, it takes that vase art and it turns it like and it tries to make it like moving animation, which I think works to like various degrees of success. Like I really didn't like the look of this movie when it came out, and it was another thing that I kind of found a new appreciation for watching it now.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of contemporaries did not like the look of this movie and thought it looked cheap. And
no, I think this movie's had like a complete flip around where at the time it was more like Disney's falling off, while I think more and more people will put Hercules and Mulan in with the Renaissance like I do, where it's like that's kind of the end of the Renaissance, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I always
right
thought I was thinking Mulan coming before this. I forgot that this was the year before it, and this is.
I always flip back and forth, and yesterday you mentioned Mulan being right before this, and I looked it up today, and it's not. It's the other way around. So yeah. I do the same thing.
The one right before this is what, Hunchback?
I think so.
But yeah, I've always kept Mulan in the Renaissance in my head because I do like that one okay, but I don't think it's as good as the best of these from the early '90s. But I always liked it better than this, and it'll be interesting to go back and look at Mulan again now because they might be on par after this viewing. I'm not sure,
yeah,
but I think that's
Mulan's
part of why I always think
Disney
Hercules
movie.
comes after because I always think of Mulan as still part of the Renaissance.
No, for sure. No, and Mulan's my favorite Disney movie, but
yeah.
No, this comes out the exact year I was born, so like I don't have a memory without this movie. Like it's just always been there. But...
yeah, and for me, I was on that bandwagon, watching them as they came out of like the evolution, and this is where it starts to kind of fall off. But like I said, I like a lot of people. I'm finding myself reappraising it a little bit, and that's not to say that I think this is a perfect movie. But my issues with it are gonna be much more in like character and a couple little story things than in like the look or the feel of it. Like I think I've really come around on what this movie looks and sounds like, Austin.
Mm-hmm. One, I do think that some of that stuff is kind of controversial even now. Like I'll still talk to people who think that the gospel choir thing doesn't work, and then other people think it's really genius. So it's like, even while it's been reappraised, I do think there are things that are choices that people maybe aren't fully on board with.
Yeah. Well, and it's always a risk, right, to adapt something like this that is that people are more familiar with, or at least it's more in the zeitgeist, because there's plenty of people that have never looked at Greek myth that have heard of Hercules and know what that is. And like I said, when I was growing up, that was a really popular TV show, so people were at least looking at that, right? And you look at arguably every other Disney movie that came out in the '90s, and they popularize arguably those characters in the first place, with maybe the exception of Beauty and the Beast, which was a thing that people were kind of familiar with, and also at one point had a TV show. But like the for almost all of those things, or maybe all of them now, the definitive versions that people think of when you bring up those titles of those characters, the Disney versions, Hercules is not that way. And even though this is like more reappraised and people like it, if you say Hercules, Disney's Hercules is not necessarily the first people think of, just because it's rooted in a foundational mythology that comes up all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if there is a definitive Hercules. Like when you say that, your mind immediately snaps to.
No, I think the definitive Hercules is simply the original
It's
myth,
just the
right?
myth, yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have that with anything else.
No one's thinking of the Brett Ratner The Rock movie. I can tell you that.
No, nor should they. I've seen that. It's
Thank
not
God
great.
that's not a superhero movie.
Oh wait, no, I never did see that. There were two Hercules movies that came out the same year, and I saw the other one.
Yes, there were.
Yeah.
There was also a Henry Cavill Theseus and the Minotaur movie that came out like right before that I heard is just 300. And
oh, weird.
The Minotaur there's a guy that wears like a bull costume in the enemy army.
I didn't know about that.
And I was like, I will not bother with that. Why would you do that?
Well, Austin, it's going to be interesting watching this with you and talking it out. If you're watching live, thanks a bunch for being here. We sure appreciate it. And feel free to interact with us as we go along. We'll try to read some comments as we go. And as always, if you want to leave a super chat, that will guarantee that we read your comment and talk about whatever aspect of this you want us to. Don't you feel like you have to do that, of course. We'll try to hit some things as we go along. And just quick plug for Patreon if you want to help influence the show and help us pick movies for commentary and other fun perks. You can become a Patreon producer at the $10 tier. That's patreon.com/geekvolution. And you can also turn in tweet length reviews at just the $5 tier. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it, Austin. Make sure that you have your movie set up to timestamp 0. It, of course, is on Disney Plus if you want to watch it that way. And away we go. Here's the clock. So if you need help tell them where we're at, just look at your screen, and I will not forget to hit play this time. Everybody, please press play right now. Okay, here we go, Austin. We're going to see if we can go the distance.
Oh, we can find our way. We can face the gods.
I forgot about the go the distance thing, and that being like kind of the big motif and idea with this, and obviously the kind of central I want something more song. But going back and watching this for the first time in a lot of years, I mean, it might have been 20 years since the last time I saw this. I hear Go the Distance, and immediately I just go back to Field of Dreams. I'm like, oh man, if he builds it, they will come, and he's got to go the distance, and he's got to ease his pain.
See, I was thinking if you were to make a Rocky musical, and this movie did not exist, I would not be shocked if his I Want More song is I Can Go the Distance.
I Can Go the Distance, yeah.
Because there's a lot of Rocky in this as well.
It's so weird. You mentioned that to me before we knew for sure we were doing this week, because it was picked in a poll, and I was like, oh, interesting, I'll look for that, because I could immediately kind of guess what some of the Superman stuff was, and there's so much Superman, particularly Donner stuff, that we'll talk about as we go through this, but I didn't immediately see the Rocky in it in my first viewing this week, and I watched it twice this week because I don't know it that well, and watching it the second time, it all jumped out at me, and I was
one of the big ones is the Danny DeVito. He's like it's because he's Yoda Mickey. And Mickey.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
He basically even has the women weaken legs thing.
That's true. Well, and I missed the thing about the first viewing because I was dealing with kids and stuff, which is part of why I watched it again. But he is you got kind of the thing where your Mickey is sitting on the sidelines, kind of giving you encouragement and moral support when you're in the middle of a battle you don't think you're going to win.
Mm-hmm.
It's got that whole thing.
He's getting angry, Herc.
I see the opening of this movie as almost a parody, almost making fun of the way Beauty and the Beast opens.
Yeah, I can kind of see that.
Because you've got the voiceover guy that's like, long ago, there was this castle. You know, it's got that kind of thing. But I love how their voiceover guy there sounds really bored.
Yeah.
It seems
very
intentional.
Stock way to open a movie, and it makes like one tweak that makes it interesting. So absolutely, I don't know if they're specifically going, let's make fun of Beauty and the Beast,
Yeah,
but that is definitely the kind of cliche thing.
No, I really like that. Well, it sets the tone because arguably this movie is a little more comedic than some of the other things that they did through the 90s. And like a lot of the comic stylings in it are familiar, and like some of the things that you had in particularly the movies they made, these directors with Little Mermaid and then Aladdin. But I think this movie is even bent a little more toward comedy even than Aladdin is.
I agree. We should also mention, while you bring up the directors, they're also the people that made the last just straight up 2D Disney animated film with Princess and the Frog.
Oh, they made that?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I've never seen that.
Neither have I, which is probably why it's the last one, but I've always heard it's good.
Well, I'm more interested in checking it out knowing it's those guys, because I have a lot of respect for their work here. It's and I think I like this a little better just knowing it's them. I didn't look that up before this first viewing, but I was just picking up on some of those hallmarks, because more recently, my kids have been watching a lot of these lately, and so I was like, oh, the flavor of this is a lot more Little Mermaid than I remembered it, and again, sometimes feels like they're almost making fun of themselves a little bit. Zeus. Sure. Is just like I could talk about this related to Little Mermaid through this entire commentary. I think like their Zeus is just Triton, but like way happier, and who only gets angry if you attack his house. It's the only thing that can piss this Zeus off. That's it.
No, I love that he's just like a guy. Like he's so happy all the time. It's really amusing.
He's hysterical. I like his design a lot. I like how gigantic his mouth is.
Yeah, well, and Rip Torn.
And he's Rip Torn!
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So when we remake this, there's going to be like 1 million Baby Pegasus toys everywhere, right?
Well, that's the reason I'm surprised they haven't done it already. Like, that's how you merchandise this.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because, like I said, or maybe this was off camera, but I had a chance to rewatch this a second time today.
That's great.
And I was thinking about that, rewatching the scene, like, that's gonna happen.
You know, I never realized this was Rip Torn, and through this first scene, I thought maybe it was John Goodman.
Oh, I can kind of see that. I've never thought to compare their voices that way, but now that you say that, like, kind of.
So the history, the evolution of, I don't know if I want to say evolution, but just like all of the different actors that were almost Hades is hysterical. They went through like so many different names. I know that happens with a lot of stuff, but with this one, there was a lot more kind of turmoil behind the scenes. Because they wanted Jack Nicholson to do it, and he asked for way too much money. It was actually Danny DeVito's idea to go to Jack Nicholson. And they offered him $500,000, and he said he'd only do it for 10 or 15. Could you imagine paying even somebody like Jack Nicholson $15 million to voice in a movie in a supporting role? Like, that's crazy.
That's absolutely crazy.
And he not only wanted that, but the main reason they didn't go with him, they might have even paid him that just to get him. The main reason they didn't go with him was, get this, he also wanted a cut of the merchandise. And they were like, no, that's not going to happen.
They're like, no, we're Disney, we're not doing that. That's crazy, because like James Woods is so much a part of why this character works.
Yeah, and I think this movie would have been a lot less successful, at least because it wasn't a huge commercial hit for them, especially compared to, uh, some of their earlier '90s movies.
We're kind of winding down a bit, yeah.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because I think it's better than and I'm arguing with my earlier self that didn't love this in the theater either. But like, I think it's better than the box office returns. But man, if he hadn't voiced it, I don't think it would have been even critically as successful as it was. And they worked with, when they couldn't get Nicholson, they worked with John Lithgow for 9 months.
Oh, I think I knew that. Not that they worked with him for that long, but I do think I knew that.
They tried to make his voice work forever, and they just didn't like it, and they couldn't get it. And James Woods was like the 515th person they saw. They had everybody come in.
Yeah.
Name somebody, he probably was there.
When I think, even despite people not loving this movie, I do think that Hades has always been like one of the big Disney villains that people love.
Yeah, and some of it is Woods' real dry kind of car salesman performance, which is just wonderful. And some of it is that design is the big thing that stands out apart from everything else. It almost feels like it belongs in a different movie, which is really cool. And I had never had this thought until I started watching more animes recently, but it feels a little anime inspired to me. Like, it's not that far away from something like Ryuk from Death Note.
I was going to say, it is a little Death Note-y. No, good call. Well, I mean, everybody loves the fire hair.
Yeah, it's hilarious. And of course it gets put out at some point. You have to do that gag.
You have to do that.
You got to respect them for keeping that as late in the game as they did. Yeah, how far it is before that happens. Now, I've read complaints again from contemporary reviews that we don't do enough with the designs, with the landscapes of the underworld and of Olympus. What we get, I think, looks really good, but I kind of agree that it would have been nice to explore them more. And particularly the underworld, because I like the look of it. We just don't live here enough.
It is surprising that we don't get more even of Cerebus. Like we got him for a little bit.
And
there
he's so cool.
He looks great.
Cerebus is wonderful.
It's kind of shocking we don't have Hercules do anything with him.
Well, and I think part of the problem there is kind of the typical Disney format, and like these guys specifically, where one of the big things I like about this movie is the way it's kind of just their other two movies again, but like almost making fun of themselves. And then that also holds it back sometimes, because like the underworld ends up just being his typical villain lair, and we never spend any time in the villain lairs in these movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's the reason, because it's just not a main arena for us to do anything in.
Mm-hmm. When he also doesn't get a villain song, because that's like hit or miss.
Yeah, that's true. I want to say it's kind of sad he doesn't get a villain song.
Yeah, there's a part of me that's kind of sad that he doesn't have one. But
and there's that question of like, does James Woods sing? Would you want to have somebody else come in and do? Because that has worked before, like with Scar, where like that was a different voice brought in.
When it flips, like he starts that song and then it becomes Jim Cummings.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So it's it's hard to say. I wonder if they tried and maybe it didn't work. I know that happens with Jafar.
Yes.
Where they tried to make a song for him and it didn't work. And I know there's stuff like that in this movie, like the big Meg song was originally just a straight up love song, and then they went, wait a minute, like this does not fit the story at all at this point.
Yes, that's the only deleted song I know about. And that it was actually not just deleted, but like scrapped for this song because it was too out of character for her.
Yeah,
it was just
and it's the right choice.
It's the right choice, yeah.
Yeah.
Because her song here is a good, kind of love song, but it's sarcastic and it flips the script a little bit, and it feels more like it's coming from her actual personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the big thing that I like about the music in this movie is I think it works really well off of the story.
Yeah. I think the songs are a little hit and miss just for me personally, and like I said, I'm
Yeah, fair
liking the whole
enough.
thing a lot more. I think my favorite song in it, besides um, Zero to Hero, which the movie was sold so hard on, and I think the
Yeah.
gospel thing does work. Personally, I thought it was a little obvious when I was a kid.
Mhm.
Like people were arguing about whether that was okay because it comes from like a Judeo-Christian place, like Christians were upset, whatever. But and I was going to church a lot at the time, and I heard people complain about that. And it's like, oh, you have a Disney movie with like the devil in it, and I'm like, can everybody just relax a little bit? This is like mythology. It's part of our world. Like you should be able to do that in a kids movie. Like
It's also
whatever.
just a good joke. Like they're singing about the gods of the gospels. It's a
Yeah,
good way to
and
update
like
it.
it's
Like
it's
it's
fun. It's a good gimmick. But at 13, I remember looking at this and going, well, yeah, of course that's what they did.
yeah. No, I just mean in terms of like people who are like who don't like it. But
Yeah,
no, that's fair.
but I don't think it's brilliant or anything because I've seen that the other direction. People are like, oh, can you believe they did that? I'm like, yes, I can.
I mean, it's not even the first time these guys have done that. If you followed their work.
But I think on a second viewing this week, the song that is sticking with me the most actually is Meg's song.
Yeah,
I
that is my second favorite
I
song as
really
well.
like it. It's doo-woppy. It's really good.
Hmm. Well, I like it's very bouncy and like back and forth, and I like that it really fits her turmoil.
Yeah. Yeah, but she still gets to be spunky with it, and
Yeah,
I like that they've got that balance where they don't have to, uh, make her a really typical female love interest, female lead, but she also gets to still be effeminate.
hmm. It's almost like a spunk off because they're also very spunky. So it's like them fighting that.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Well, and it's unusual for one of these movies to have like such a cool rapport between the villain and the love interest, and like that's just baked into the plot because that's kind of a new thing for this movie too, where the whole idea is the love interest is working for the bad guy reluctantly, which is that's one of the aspects of this, Austin, that is very Greek myth.
Mhm.
Like there are bits of this where they take just kind of like basic motifs or ideas of the of like Greek mythology stories, Greek tragedies, and it feels like it doesn't go to a specific one, but it feels like it could have been one. Like her background in selling her soul to the devil and all of that, which we'll talk about later because I have questions about the kind of moral of the story with that, but we'll get there later.
Yeah, absolutely. What was I gonna say with that? Oh, I also feel like as we'll kind of get into, there's so much Superman in this, and
Yeah, we need to
it
start
makes
getting to that because it is the superhero rewind commentary project.
it makes me wonder if they looked at that scene in Superman the movie when Miss Tessmacher and Superman have like their little moment together, and if they looked at that and went, "What if she's Lois?" and like that was the
Yes.
basis for making a love interest as you combine those two characters.
Yeah, and Donald Wright in the comments there just mentioned Meg seeming to give off Lois Lane vibes. I think like going back to this, and maybe part of this is just because my focus for like 15 years of my life has been so much on superhero movies. It all leaps at me really hard now. Uh, where like Zeus is Jor-El, Hades is Zod. You've got your Clark Kent that is raised by the Kents. They are sad to see their kid go, but are approving of his going to find himself and be a hero. He goes to basically a fortress of solitude, and he talks to the Jor-El hologram, who sends him on a journey to figure out who he is and learn about his origins. And then the only real difference is it's a Krypton that didn't explode. So what he's after is not just a way to save the world, but a way to get back home. And the character arc is supposed to be, by the end, that's not actually what he wants. He wants to stay with the mortals. And I think the arc itself is a little weak, and we'll talk about that. But
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Hades is also very Lex Luthor-y and just how he's portrayed.
yeah, that's true too. I kept thinking Zod just because of the way his plan kind of works in the story in the third act.
Mm-hmm.
Like the origin here, and this is a superhero origin movie, is very Superman 1, of course. Like, we're in the Smallville section right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to the third act, it is Superman 2, where he gives up his powers for the love of his life, and then Zod takes over the world, and he has to do something to get them back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's like a mix of Zod and Lex, because he's also like the businessman that's like walking around making his deals.
Yeah, that's right.
He even mentions that he has a property. His plan is a property thing.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah. No, he says real estate.
Or real estate. That's what it is.
It's
yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah. That's.
RJ Godzilla says it's almost like Superman is just a modern day Hercules. LOL. I mean, I don't like there are influences obviously with on Superman with classic mythology from antiquity, but I see it more in reverse with this, where this is taking, because I want to talk a little bit about the different definitions of hero, because the Greeks, sort of like the difference between what we think of as comedy now and what would have been considered comedy then, where comedy is a story where everything works out at the end when you go back far enough, and now comedy is something you're supposed to laugh at while you're watching it. It's different. Hero is that way too, Austin, where the Greek hero, the Roman hero, is a character with a lot of bravery that and strength that goes on to trials and does and does like impressive feats. It's not necessarily about saving people.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a warrior idea. And
yeah,
so,
exactly. It's just a different culture.
And so what we've done here is we've taken that and we've modernized it to the point where Hercules has to be a Superman kind of hero. So that's the main reason we're doing this on Rewind, is he's not a hero, he's a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
Like, literally, it's the modern 20th century definition.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. He's not just doing the 12 trials because he's Hercules. He just straight up he has to become a superhero.
Now, I do feel like there's a version of this that could have incorporated the trials.
Yeah, I agree.
In some way, and
I don't know if you would have had to cut it down because of the runtime, but
well, sure, and you also could have made them, not exactly the same thing. But and I always hate to kind of rewrite these things, but I feel like the movie's a little bit at odds with itself in trying to decide if this is supposed to be a conflicted hero at all, where when you get to the end, the character arc is he's had to learn to, like, I don't know if this is a character that's supposed to learn anything or not, Austin, where you get to the end of the movie and by the way, this just feels straight out of Donner.
Oh yeah, they basically just gave him the ship. Yeah, I don't think it's as much that he has to learn anything. I think it just is more the Rocky thing of, well, he made it.
Yeah.
Like, it's more that.
Yeah, but where I'm hung up, Austin, is the whole true hero idea, because I see him as a true hero all the way through. It's like, did he have to just prove that to Zeus and the gods, or does he have to prove that to himself, or is it the Thor thing where he's not worthy yet and then he becomes worthy? That doesn't set right with me, really. Like, I almost wish it was more he's Superman, he it's difficult, but he always does the right thing, and he maybe at the end has to go through the trials to prove that to everybody else. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think the trials could have come in. The idea that he has to, like, prove that he's a true hero to get his godhood back feels like a real tacked on idea, because it feels like a very Disney sort of way to achieve that. And I also just don't really, even as flimsy as the mythology is in this, I don't really even understand how we get to it, because it's like, are all of the gods in this heroes besides Hades?
Well, because you mentioned that to me before, I think it's just to like regain a godhood. Like Hades is already a god; he's just corrupted. So like he never lost his god powers; he doesn't have to earn them. So like that would be my reasoning for why Hades can be evil but still be a god.
But I guess my question is, and it's just not thought out, and that's what I don't like about it, is like,
Yeah, that's fair.
but why does he have to earn it? You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
why can't the gods just bestow it back on him? And like and I'm getting in the weeds with this, I realize that, but
Yeah, that's just a place where it feels like mythology, where it's like, well, he has to earn it because it's the hero's journey.
because it's the hero's journey, yeah. We should also point out that it's not the it's not exactly the typical like Greek hero's journey or the Joseph Campbell thing, because he doesn't ever resist the call, and that is also real modern. Where like you do get superheroes that like actual 20th century superheroes that will sometimes go, no, I don't want to be a hero, like Spider-Man. But when you go to like the Golden Age ones, they never do that. They just right away. But like Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, these are not characters that resist the call. None of them, as different as they all are. Batman makes a vow. That's not resisting anything.
But with what you're saying with like why the end is why he becomes like that is the like.
Sorry, I threw a lot at you.
No, it's okay. Like my guess with that is just it's more the ethereal thing of like he did the impossible and like got out of it, and in that like not exactly sacrificial, but like putting yourself below in order to do it and still coming out on top. Like I think it's more like that, which in a way feels more like mythology.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I can also understand that as a criticism.
And they're also taking a Greek myth, like there's this balance they're trying to find, where they're almost turning Greek mythology into fairy tale.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's kind of just a mix of all of that kind of thing, from comics to sports films to fairy tales to mythology. It's like the culmination of fiction.
Also, it's also odd. I just had this thought, Austin, how this song, his I Want More song, is a cross between both Aladdin's version of this and then also the Magic Carpet Ride song without the love interest. It's kind of both.
He's got his bro.
It's also interesting, and I'm jumping around a lot with ideas because we were kind of in the superhero realm. But going back to the Disney thing for a second, I also want to mention that, just because it's coming back to my head again, that this is Little Mermaid almost exactly in reverse.
In what way?
Where you have your hero that lives in the mundane regular man's world that thinks the grass is greener, wanting to get to live on Olympus, and then when you get to the end, when he gets his chance to, like Little Mermaid, get his version of his legs, he goes against it. It's the exact opposite of the arc in that movie.
That is interesting.
And that's important to bring up because it's the same directors making it. And now that I know that these guys did the three of those, it would be really interesting to watch them in succession, because there's a spiritual trilogy here, absolutely. And in some ways, their Hercules feels like Aladdin with superpowers, except less whiny, and he does the right thing, so we don't have to watch him lie to the woman he loves the entire movie, like, really, really badly, which is irritating.
No, I really like Hercules in this movie. He's basically just a meathead that walks around and is like, I'm gonna do the good things. Ah, shucks.
Well, I think part of the reason I'm frustrated with their arc with him, and in some ways he's my least favorite thing in his own movie. Like I kind of like everything surrounding him, and he's kind of just the glue that holds it together. Like he's the thing that pulls us through, and so he feels like a plot device in his own movie to me. Like I don't dislike. I actually kind of like him character-wise more than Hercules, or more than Aladdin, I think.
Mhm.
But
I also agree with that in terms of him being the least interesting character.
yeah,
I do agree with that because he's basically just hero man, and that's very much the point.
and
But
that's the point, and that's okay. But that's also part of why I don't need him to do the like self-sacrifice. I'm worthy of the power thing now. You're probably right about how it's supposed to be playing, though.
yeah, I also just like that
That's
because
fair.
I feel like things like this movie really cement what I like in just kind of hero fiction, and that you have like just all of the odds like dumping down on them the whole time, and even though you know they're obviously going to get out of it, like so a lot of that just kind of plays for me, where it's
Yeah,
like this is just the type of stuff that I want to see.
I think I'm more frustrated having read up on this because originally, the original pitch, and I forget who it was, but the guy that pitched it ended up not actually making the movie. So they greenlight it for pre-production or for development as early as '92, and then these guys come to it a little bit later. And by the way, these guys were working on Treasure Planet as
Oh,
early as
okay.
like '93, and then that happens way later. And
I
I
was
don't even
gonna
know if these
say,
guys ended up working on that movie. It's all very complicated, and I'm trying to keep it all in my brain, having just looked all of this up earlier today. But anyway, the guy that originally pitched this, his idea was that Hercules would, with his great strength, and there's a little bit of this in the movie, I guess, would be really impulsive and make decisions too quickly, and would think that everything was about Bruce strength, and he would have a character arc where he would learn that he can't just fix everything with his muscles. And I think this movie could have still had that and not been that different.
Yeah, I agree. He's very much the way people talk about, or like I guess Loki will talk about Thor, where he's just the meathead guy that runs in and he does the right thing, and that's kind of all there is to him.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I think I'm also glad that he's not like Thor from the Thor movie, where we have to watch him be real conceited and full of himself the whole movie, and then he makes his self-sacrifice, and then he is immediately a light switch worthy of the hammer. Like, I'm glad he's not that.
Hmm. No, I agree. I'm glad it is more of the Superman thing of just he shows up and that's just how he is.
One of the great shocks with this movie is that Danny DeVito can sing.
Yes, and this is a song that basically just plays off of him as like a character actor and like doesn't really make him do much vocally, but like he's still really good.
He's really good. Yeah, no, you're right. He doesn't have to stretch himself too far, but like he's carrying a tune, and he's giving it all the right energy and inflections, and it's fun.
They know not to push him. They know that
yes,
he has to get by just off of being Danny DeVito, and it works.
And you can hear the Aladdin influence in this real hard.
Yeah.
This is one of the weaker songs to me overall, just writing wise. Like I like him a lot. I don't love some of the lyric writing in this. It's okay.
Fair enough. Yeah,
I do
like the song, but
yeah,
fair enough.
I do like the reversal at the start though. Where you think he's gonna sing about how like he's the one that's resisting the call. You think he's gonna sing about how I wanted to train heroes. I don't care anymore. I'm not gonna do that. And then he gets struck by lightning by Zeus, and he goes, "Okay, fine. I guess I believe you now."
Well, that's a rhyme I really like. Is I got two words for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a fun running gag where he always says a different number of words than he actually says. He does it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. Well, especially because that he was gonna get it right that time.
Yeah, he almost got it. That's
almost got him. And of course, the animation in this is just fantastic.
It's also nice that we don't have to watch him for like half an hour not believe Hercules is the son of Zeus and then make that a big plot point or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's refreshing, and it kind of works as a reveal. Or not a reveal, but as a reversal, as a surprise in the moment.
Yeah, no, it's a good gag, and you're right, like it kind of avoids a cliche.
I like the gag of the damsel doll that gets more messed up as the song goes along. And then when he finally has to save one when he first meets Meg, you're like, oh god, her head's gonna come off. Like he has no idea what he's doing.
I'm a damsel. I'm in distress. I got this.
I'll read super chats here in a minute. Appreciate you guys. But before I do that, I also want to mention that it is a little bit hyperbolic, Austin, if I may, to say that this has like nothing to do at all with Hercules. It's very, very thin. But one of the but I'll lay out real quick the main thing. I'm rusty, but I'll lay out the main things I remember that we actually did draw from the mythology. And by the way, these guys did go back and read a lot before they finally decided to throw it all out. So like in their defense, it's not like they didn't do their research. They just decided to ignore it completely. But just to Clements and Musker's defense, they thought about it and they went, as you might expect, well, we really can't make a Disney movie about an illegitimate son of a god that goes around and sleeps with every human woman that moves. Mm-hmm. We really can't do that.
No, it's at least cool that we get stuff. Like we get the lion, and when we get the skin of it, it's Scar.
That's so funny. Jason, my 14-year-old was working on schoolwork while I was watching this, and he happens to walk into the room when that happens, and he just died laughing.
It's really funny,
and it was completely out of context, and he was just like, "Why is Scars?" Well, and you know what else is great about that?
What's that?
I just had this thought. I don't know if this is an intentional callback, but it doesn't matter because it just tracks. It just works. Do you remember the line in Lion King? Where Zazu says Scar would make a nice throw rug.
Yep.
That's so good! That's so good!
Yeah, I've had that thought too.
I like it when they do little, not so subtle nods to their own movies. Like, I don't mind that stuff.
And like, you're going to reference the lion already. Like, that's just a model you got ready.
No, that's a great point. But that is a way more specific thing than what I was going to mention with the ways in which this is actually looking at Hercules.
Yeah.
So he is a half god in a way. They found a way to get him there. Mm-hmm. And he is like ultra well known and famous. Like that's a major Hercules mythology thing. Is that like everybody knows who he is? He's the most famous hero in the land. You know, that whole thing. Mm-hmm. And they make that a big part of the movie.
Yeah.
And you know his father is still Zeus.
Yeah, and other Greek things I think are fine. Like giving him Pegasus, I think, is fine for this kind of a thing.
Sure.
It's the big thing everyone knows. But, like, I think it works.
Well, and that's in line with their other movies because you always have to have the, like, pet sidekick.
Yeah. No, exactly.
And so, like, the Pegasus is the carpet or the monkey from Aladdin. I don't guess Little Mermaid exactly has that, because, like, Flounder is sort of a different thing.
It's kind of... Well, it helps that your, like, side characters are also animals.
Yeah. But,
so
like...
they kind of fit both roles.
Yeah, because a lot of these Disney movies will have an animal that, like, doesn't really talk, but, you know, that isn't, like, fully personified. Mm-hmm. And that's the monkey in Aladdin. But I guess Little Mermaid doesn't have one of those.
No, it doesn't really. It's the start, so they can be forgiven.
So, finally going back to this, I think Meg is my new not Disney princess. Or my new favorite not Disney princess. I love her so much.
She's great. This movie's also weirdly horny, and it's like one of the last times that a Disney movie will be allowed to
everybody
do
in the comments is talking about that. I haven't gotten.
Oh, are they? Oh.
Yes, I haven't gotten there yet. Just about how. So this is one of the things I wanted to mention about Phil, where Danny DeVito is. It's weird that we're borrowing from, of all things, Penguin and Batman Returns, because he will immediately hate a woman that he's hitting on because she won't sleep with him. In a Disney movie.
I also forgot he called her Sweet Cheeks, which is not a thing that would happen now. It's crazy.
No, it's not. No, there's a ton of that. Now, there is that question of how much of it is in the script and how much of it is ad-libbing. Because we know, of course, there's tons of ad-libbing with Hades.
Yeah.
It's
but there
possible...
is also a lot of that energy in the animation.
Yes.
So
but a lot of the time,
both.
the animation comes from what the actor was doing with his voice. So, I mean, it's possible...
When I mean, like, how we shoot her, too. Shoot her.
Animate her, yeah.
The big scene they have together later where they're gonna kiss is like one of the big ones.
Yeah, no, that's true. Where it's just like really explicit looking.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, to go back to her character, because we immediately went to that. I'm sorry about that, but
yeah.
No, she's great. She's always been one of my favorite Disney love interests, especially because that's something they often struggle with.
Apparently, James Woods' performance was like so fast talking that his character was nearly impossible to animate.
I've heard that, yeah.
And that there was apparently a 1 second moment that took weeks to animate.
But you think about it, like the way he moves and like the energy he has, and I guess the argument would be, I mean, you did it with Robin Williams, but
yeah,
he's maybe a little faster.
He's faster. And somehow talks even more sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
But I love, and some of it also is just how, like, dry and understated the performance is. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's what everybody loves about this.
Very bipolar, yeah.
That's what everybody loves about this is the hot and the cold of it. Where, I love how mundane and routine and everyday he is when he's like, okay, look, so you effed up, so you were gonna, I was gonna give you 2 years off your sentence, now you get 2 years on, whatever. And then he finds out Hercules is still alive and he's just losing it. And now he's looking like what you would expect Hades to be the whole movie. And you'll get about 2% of this performance in the entire movie. And it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
It's also kind of funny that we're reversing what colors actually mean hot, because like blue should be hotter.
Mm-hmm. But then like visually red looks scarier,
yeah.
So we build to that, yeah.
I think that's right.
Mm-hmm. No, that is right.
So the minions are also very Little Mermaid.
Yes.
Except they talk a lot because you've got the 2 eels in that movie.
They're also very hyenas from Lion King.
Mm-hmm. And the voice actors for that are just such a weird pairing, where you have Bobcat Goldthwait, and then you have one of my favorite actors, Matt Frewer, as Pain and Panic, respectively. And I didn't know that was Matt Frewer until today.
Mm-hmm. No, that's wild.
I wish he did more voice acting. He really makes sense for cartoons. I don't think he did a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not to my knowledge, but he's really good in this. We finally made it to Metropolis, but it's Gotham yet now.
All of the kind of modern day stuff they do in a sort of Flintstones-y sort of way really, really works for me. It makes me laugh.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a lot of fun, and I think people complain that it's too modern in some of this, like the Air Hercs and stuff like that. But I don't know. I agree. It's that Flintstones thing. Like,
I don't know why it doesn't bother me with this, because it should. I've complained about it in other things. I think it's just because, like I said earlier, it gets up front and announces its tone right away, and you're just not supposed to take it seriously enough.
Mm-hmm. No, very true.
I think if it was trying to be more straight with the mythology, that would irritate me. But because we just it feels more farcical than that, and so I'm all right with it.
That and like we're updating the premise to a very modern type of story as well.
Yeah, and so the world itself is just more modern. Like with Aladdin, the only way the and we cheat in a couple places, but for the most part, the only places where we get modern references and like nods to pop culture are with the genie, who's like an omnipotent being who could know all that stuff, and that's the only way it works in that, because Agrabah is played straight enough throughout it. And with this, it's just a little goofier, it's a little kitschier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you could make the argument that you could do it with all the gods in this.
No,
And
you could have. It could have been more of the
they're all cosmically
fantasy
aware.
characters. Yeah.
But once you get to things like the Hercules store and the Air Jordans and all of that, I love the Hercules store because, and it's kind of surreal that we're late enough into the '90s now that the Disney store is already a thing, and that's what they're doing. And then like the logo is the Disney store logo, and it's a play on that. It's really funny.
Well, and it just helps, play into how big this character is getting in world by relating it to something in modern day.
Yeah, well, and it leads to one of Hades' best moments where he's freaking out because his minions are wearing the merchandise. I think part of the reason it works is because they go full tilt into it.
Yeah.
They don't skirt around it.
They're like doing the shooting thing where they're pulling glasses, but it's Hercules faces. Vases.
Yeah, and then that's one of the best lines in my mind in the movie when Meg says "nice shooting, Rex." So good. Again, that thing I didn't appreciate when I was a kid. Rex? I didn't know Rex meant king, and that just makes me laugh now.
Oh, that's fantastic stuff.
We talked over. This was a while ago now, Austin. One of the visual bits that made me laugh the most, which I don't even know if it's supposed to be funny, but I need to admit to how hard I laughed at this. So when he goes to see the Jarell hologram, because I'm just going to keep referring to it that way, Zeus and the statue, it's the Jarell hologram. There's like a modern sign with an arrow pointing to the temple where that is, and I don't know why, Austin. I thought that was so funny.
Oh, that's great. We also just talked over.
There it is. There's the funniest line in the entire movie.
Which one?
Somebody call IXII.
I also like.
And if you don't think that's funny, then your and my sense of humor do not line up, folks.
Mm-hmm. I also
so
think
funny.
One of Meg's best lines is when she comes in and she's like, "Oh, there's kids stuck down there," and Hercules is like, yes, this is exactly what we're looking for," and she's like, "Oh, wow, you're really turned up about this, aren't you?"
You know what? That reminds me of the thing I was going to mention earlier, which is one of the reasons Meg works so well is because her. I guess I want to say like demeanor or disposition is really close to Hades's.
Yes. It's like Lois and Hades.
Yeah, and then that, and I'm sure none of this is intentional, but then that starts making me think about how like Lois in a lot of Superman continuities will date Lex Luthor or almost marry Lex Luthor.
For sure.
And how like she can be attracted to different kinds of power. Mm-hmm. And I mean that breaks down with this because she's not actually attracted to Hades, and but she's somewhat similar to him in ways, and she can be deceptive and manipulative in that same way. And obviously she's somewhat sympathetic in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. We also mentioned that this was like a really big deal at the time, visually. The fully CGI
and it holds up.
Hydra.
It still looks great.
It still looks really good, and I feel like it shouldn't, but it does.
I don't even think it's that dated. I think you could put this in the theater now. I think it looks pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Like you can tell it's animated differently, but it also works because it gives it an otherworldly look.
Yeah, it feels intentional.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Hydra scene so much. The thing that's really impressive to me with this is I'm looking at this 3D model, and I kind of can't believe they got away with this in '97, and then they throw 30 of them on the screen.
And it's also both thrilling and very scary to a kid. And
isn't it nice to see Disney not losing that? Even in a movie that is this comedic and is maybe sillier than a lot of the other things they made in this period, that's one of the things that makes it feel classic, and it's still part of that renaissance, but also still throwing back in the right ways to the earliest Disney stuff. Like we can still do the big scary dragon from Snow White and things like that.
Absolutely.
Is it Snow White that has the dragon?
Beauty.
I do that every time.
I know what you meant.
I always mix them up.
It's from Sleeping White.
Let me read these super chats. Matthew Base, $5 super chat. How does Hades not know if Hercules is dead or not? He's the god of the underworld. That's literally his job. Oh my god.
I mean,
I never thought about that.
There's so many bodies going by. He ain't got time for that.
That is an excellent point. Okay, well,
That is very funny.
Let me counter that. Let me counter that for a second.
Yeah.
Before I counter it, let me say he wins the argument no matter what I say. Because that is, I mean, yeah. But the only thing I can think of is even having drank a potion, and how Disney is that, by the way, that in like Greek mythology with gods, you have a potion that can make you lose your godhood. Okay. Even drinking this is so cool. Even drinking the potion and losing his godhood, would Hades expect his soul to still go there to the underworld?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably. But that's the only thing I can think of.
As a different god underworld.
Yeah, well, and he's also like that slimy used car salesman that says that like whatever he needs to get the job done, but maybe doesn't even really like his job that much, right? Like, there's this unspoken thing, and this is another like really broad way, very broad, Austin, way that this is still looking a little bit at real Greek mythology, which is we have a Zeus that is painted as the clear good guy. But the one kind of morally ambiguous thing he does is arbitrarily assigning his brother to the underworld and kind of throwing away the key and not thinking about him again.
Mm-hmm. And it's because we do this a lot when adapting Greek mythology, where we just go, well, we all know Satan, so Hades is Satan now, even though that's not really how Hades works. But I think this is one of the few places where that works because everything is modernized in that way, where like Hercules is also being updated to the modern day superhero myth, so
yeah, that's
it
true.
doesn't feel as strange when Hades is just the devil.
No, in the actual mythology, there's so much gray in everybody. Where like the gods are not gods because they're good people.
The worst god is Poseidon. Forget Hades.
Like they have. And that's part of the point, right? Is like they have all the same like flaws and desires and things that human beings have.
Mm-hmm. When Hades is oddly like one of the nicer ones, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always been kind of a fun perversion to that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's this weird unspoken thing in this movie where you're right, like it kind of works because we modernize it and we just make him like straight up bad because that's the world he lives in. He's supposed to be bad, and that's a really typical Disney villain thing to do. But then at the same time, there's like this slight tinge of pathos to him that you get not really throughout, but just at the start, where in almost like a Scar sort of way.
Yeah, he's very Scar. I mean, you even have the brother angle. But
that's the main thing where this reminds me of Lion King. Because I'm talking a lot about the other two movies these guys did earlier, but like this feels like the culmination in some ways of everything we did in the Renaissance up to this point. And you can look at it either as the culmination or of a parody, or as a parody of all of it. I think it kind of works either way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sorry, I'm like so lost on how good the song is.
No, it is really good. And it's
just a cool way to fit in a ton of Greek monsters and Easter eggs. Like we get Medusa a second ago, and then harpies.
Yeah, well, and if you're gonna do the Greek mythology thing, you gotta have muses.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Exactly.
How else are you gonna do them?
I remember every single VHS I had as a kid had the trailer for this, and they all had the Who Puts the Glad in Gladiator?
Yeah.
Point where that was just what I called the song for like a long time. Even though that's clearly not what the song is.
But yeah, all the mix of styles with music and visuals and stuff all feels really intentional. Like again, there were contemporary reviews that complained that it couldn't pick a lane, and I'm like, I don't think you get what it's doing.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. there's also just so much energy in this because obviously it's Hercules is becoming a hero and becoming this huge larger than life thing, and the song's kind of fitting with that.
Maybe part of the reason that I'm not reading the character arc or the lack thereof the way you are, Austin, is I might be fixated on one moment which we haven't gotten yet, which is when he goes back to the Jor-El hologram and Zeus says won't tell him what he has to do to be a true hero, but says that it's not about fame. That feels like he has to learn something.
No, I see where you're coming from. Like I said, I think it's more just that, like, kind of he has to get to that point where he's beyond that and fully just a legend beyond anything that you can comprehend.
This might be a good place for me to ask you the big kind of like moral of the story question, Austin. So, Meg, and again, we do kind of the parable thing, where her backstory sounds like a really typical Greek tragedy myth, where she sells her soul. I think we're about to get that, or no, it was a couple scenes after this. But she sells her soul to save a boyfriend. We don't know from what. We don't know, like, is he dying of cancer? I don't know. But
it's very Casino Royale.
But she sells her soul to Hades to save her boyfriend, and then he stabs her in the back and runs off with some other girl, some floozy, right? And then when you get to the end of the movie, Hercules will essentially do the same thing she did with that, where he makes a deal with the devil to save her, but for her, the moral is that, like, you were foolish for doing that, and you're having to pay for it by working for Hades. And for Hercules, the moral is you did the right thing by sacrificing yourself, and now you get to be a god. And so my question is the moral be careful who you're getting involved with, or is there something kind of hypocritical happening here?
So I would say Hercules isn't in the right for doing that. He just makes it right.
What do you mean?
Well, just because, like, he's punished for having done that. Like, he doesn't gain from selling his soul to the devil to do that. And it's only once he gets out of that he can then go on and do the right thing. So, like, I think the movie is punishing him for making that choice.
Well, but what is it that gives him his godhood back? Like, isn't it just that he goes after her?
It is, but it's not part of that deal. Like, he makes that deal first, and then that's why he loses his powers. And then, are you talking about at the end?
Yeah, I'm talking about at the end when he makes the second deal, when he says I'll give you my soul for hers. So it's the exact same thing she did.
Okay, sorry. I think I got mixed up because I'm thinking of a different scene.
No, that's okay. I understand why you did that.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
And
I'm of two minds about it. Because again, I could see the argument that it's all like relationship advice stuff. That the idea is she didn't, but we don't know enough about the background, I guess. But that, like, the guy that she was with was maybe not a real hero like Hercules.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably, like, it is probably very simplistic in that way of just, well, he's well-meaning.
And I was just fixated on it because those myths are always like parables with a really simple kind of lesson to live by. You know, like, I don't have too much hubris, don't go too close to the sun, be careful what boxes you open, you know, things like that. And it watches like one of those where it's like, don't sell your soul for a guy that you don't trust.
Mm-hmm. And if you do become a god, and then you don't have to sell your soul.
See, what I'm wondering, and admittedly, this would be rewriting the movie some, but I just wonder if the movie might his arc, or however you want to look at it, like, is he a character that refuses to change, or does he change? I wonder if the whole thing might not have been more what's the word I'm looking for? Wow, that's a really well-drawn ceiling.
It's the first time you've ever said that.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever said that before. It's just weird how realistic it looks with how flat some of the rest of this is. Mm-hmm. Aladdin does a lot of that, too.
Absolutely. I think this is also the first Disney movie where the male hero gets molested by a group of people. It's really breaking the ground.
But yeah, sorry, I was going to say, I wonder if his story might not be more effective if it isn't the typical, like self-sacrifice thing that makes him a true hero, and if it isn't more about forgiveness. Because the person that he's saving deceived him, and he sacrifices his soul for her anyway. Like, I think I would have appreciated that whole. It doesn't even actually rewrite it that much.
Not at all.
If you pull that to the forefront, I'm kind of buying the true hero aspect of it more, and I'm buying it more as a thing that he would need to prove to himself and the audience. Like, that's way harder, and the idea of making and I don't know. I just think it would have been a cool kind of different theme for a thing like this, and connects all these threads together. Where you say, like, a true hero is someone that that does the hardest thing, which is forgive someone that has massively wronged him. And if you look at Christ-like figures, like, throughout history in various cultures and mythologies, it's about that a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, for Christians, the greatest hero of all is Jesus. What did he do? He gave his life to forgive people of their sins, right? And I realize this isn't a Christian thing, despite the gospel stuff, but that aspect of like savior and hero is present in a lot of religions.
Yeah, absolutely. Robert also says that his selling his soul is also different because he wants to die so she can live, which is different than her just making a deal so that they can be together.
Well, I guess that's fair. And where it feels more self-sacrificial because she's hoping she can have her cake and eat it too, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. But you still see why I'm questioning it.
No, I absolutely see why you're questioning it.
Well, thanks, because I had to come up with something to talk about besides just the Hydra looks cool.
Besides the animators were really having fun animating this scene.
Yeah, they were. But I'm gonna maybe get flack from some folks in the comments for saying this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think she is one of the prettiest models that they've had.
Yeah.
Like, I just like her look a lot.
Mm-hmm. No, I love the character.
And also I love how, and maybe it's based on the actress, I don't know, but like I love how sarcastic and flippant this character is, and it's in her face all the time. Like, she has this like her resting face is disgust.
Resting disgust face.
It's resting disgust face, and it's great.
Yeah, and she's just like a regular Broadway actress.
Like, she just does this all the time.
She's fantastic.
Oh, and that's an interesting thing I read today too. What is her name?
Susan Egan.
Susan Egan. So she was apparently, and I didn't know this. I read this today, and then I'll get back to super chats. Thanks, guys. She was Belle on the Broadway version of Aladdin, and
Yeah.
almost didn't get the role because the producers could not in the directors couldn't imagine like Belle in this role. It's so different from that character. It's so polar opposite from that. So when they finally let her come in and read, they all had to like close their eyes and not look at her and just listen to the voice. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they couldn't see it.
Yeah. Fascinating.
And I think that's really understandable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're completely different characters. And that just shows her range.
See, I like the song a lot.
Oh, it's a fantastic song. And because she's like a Broadway person, this is actually her singing.
Yeah, and she's really good. And it's also fun that she's backed up by the muses.
Yes.
It's fun
No,
that
I like that it's like a musical debate.
Yeah, that's true. And it's like they're just kind of rooting for and praising Hercules through the whole movie, and then once they get to her, like they relate to her because she's the love interest, and so now like they have a vested interest in her getting with him, and it's just really funny. They're just trying to convince her.
They're like, "Come on, Lois, you know it."
Dan Schneider, $2 super chat. This movie wouldn't be rated G now. It's too risque. Well, that's true. This movie wouldn't have gotten made now by Disney.
When to be fair, does Disney make G-rated movies anymore?
Well, that's true, but forget the rating. They just wouldn't allow some of the stuff in it.
Yeah.
In the first
one
place.
of the things that I like about it is that it doesn't feel like it has to have the team thing where everyone has to have something to do by the end, which is exactly what would happen now.
That guttural thing she does in that line is great. Like she clearly is very, very vocally trained.
Absolutely.
The emoting's really good. Yeah, I never gave this movie enough credit because I did not remember certain things like just how good the song is.
No, I think it's like an all-time great Disney song.
Yeah, I'll go that far. Sure. Okay, Matthew Bass has a $20 super chat. I keep saying Bass. His actual
and
last name is Bass.
Also there's a super chat from Chewbacca's lover at the beginning.
Oh my goodness, did I miss one?
Yeah.
Apologies, Chewbacca's lover. He's already unsubscribed. It's fine. I'm sorry. Matthew Bass, $20 super chat. Really appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for that. He says, I think the idea is supposed to be that Hercules' heart isn't in the right place because it's just a means to an end to get what he wants. See, he's jumping on what I was saying. He has to learn to truly put someone else before himself. His arc is still flimsy, though. Yeah, so I'm with you. I think that's what they think they're conveying. And I just don't see Hercules as anything but basically perfect throughout it. Like the way he's acting, what his attitude is, seems contrary to some of the just basic plot points that are there. So when you get to the end and it's like, I have to keep reminding myself that what he wants is to go to Olympus. Like I keep forgetting that.
No, and I guess at the same time, like when he's saving people, it is through that mindset. Like he's celebrating when those kids are stuck under a boulder.
No, and that's so funny in the moment, but and maybe some of it is just the line deliveries, Austin. Like he never feels too pompous enough, if that's what it's supposed to be. You know, and it's tricky, right? Because you also don't want him to be like no fun to watch and to be unsympathetic and unlikable. And I think that's a problem that Aladdin has, where it starts to fall a little bit too far on the like whiny, immature side. And so at the same time as I'm glad, so I'm really conflicted by it, because at the same time as I'm glad that he's kind of likable. I'm also not getting that he actually really has this big lesson to learn.
Yeah, for sure. There's also a Robert super chat that we missed, and it's about Meg too. So
would you go ahead and read those?
Yes, I can. Do you want me to start with the Meg one since we were just talking about that?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll go in reverse order. $5 from Robert Wild. I almost said $5 from Super Chat. I think
Oh, my favorite super chatter, super chat.
exactly. Superfly. I think Meg is unfairly criticized as a love interest who is independent only to become a damsel at the end. That criticism is ignoring the context.
Yes, absolutely it is.
100%.
Yep.
No, I think this movie proves that you can do the damsel in distress thing without it being. Well, I hesitate to say sexist because, like, I don't know if I would say that in general, but
I think it's ridiculous and unfair to say that you can never use that trope.
mhm.
You know,
No,
it's
I agree.
overused, but to say it's now illegal
Mhm.
is I'm sorry to people that won't agree with this, but that's stupid.
Mhm.
And the reason it's stupid is because if you're gonna have a male hero that with a supporting cast that has to serve that hero. I love, by the way, the push-ins
Mhm.
on the faces as they're getting heated.
Yeah, and it's getting more red as we
Yeah,
go in. Yeah,
it's
it's great.
it's a really good choice. I was also going to say earlier, and I don't know why I'm thinking about this here, but there's a well because you said the like red in the background.
Mhm.
One of the reasons that this seems more comedic than in where the focus is more on the comedy to me than some of their other movies is I feel like there's also more like traditional cartoon comedy in this. And like on the level of a Warner Brothers or a Tex Avery thing, maybe a little bit Disney, but even less Disney, even though this is a Disney movie,
Mhm.
particularly with some of the scoring in comedic moments. Like
Mhm.
it's not scored like a Disney movie in a lot of places.
Mhm. Well, and even with what you're saying, with what we're watching right now, this Hades gag where he keeps walking, even though he's, going on the pole and he passes it, that's a Looney Tunes joke.
But yeah, I don't. I think you can have both and Austin when
Mhm.
it comes to the quote unquote damsel in distress thing. Like
I agree.
if you have a male character that really cares about even if she is a strong independent character that's three dimensional and you want that, of course you do.
Mhm.
You can still put her in danger and have your main character want to save her, and he's gonna seem like a horrible person if he doesn't try just because she's strong enough to take care of herself. Like
Yeah. Well, and it's one of the things that I
it
think
could
is,
be it could be too much of a crutch, and it could be too much just like propping up a male character to look like strong and heroic and all of that, and that is not what we have here. I think you have to go case by case.
Mhm. No, and it's a place where I think in trying to sidestep it, we've gone a little too far in modern
Yeah, I think so too.
superhero movies, where now it's, as I was kind of alluding to a second ago, like it's the everyone has to have something to do by the end, where it's like in a lot of say modern MCU films, like the love interest or whoever has to be part of the climax, where they're right in the action, and I don't know, there's just something that I think takes away from some of these like solo hero things with that.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not saying you can never do that, but it's becoming too much of a trope because we've just gone a little too far with it.
Well, sometimes in like it's a little subjective. People aren't always going to agree with. You're not always going to be able to tell what the motivation is. And I don't
Mhm.
want to get stuck on this for
It
too
just
long.
depends on the story
But
too.
but sometimes the motivation on the side of the creators feels like they're trying too hard not to look politically incorrect or not to look sexist or whatever, and so they'll force those choices, those moments, so that they're checking all the boxes and they're making everybody happy. And that's when it irritates me, is when it just comes off kind of disingenuous. We're well, it's against the rules now. You're not allowed to do that. I'm like, that's not how self-expression works. Like,
Yeah, and it's a lot of just trying to make things into ensembles when they don't always need to be.
that's a problem too. But I think sometimes that happens because of the criticism of, well, this character didn't get enough of an arc. This story wasn't about that character, so that's
Mhm.
fine. Now you can say a character was underutilized that you could have done more with, but this idea that I just think that sometimes people get too caught up in I hate to say the politics of it, but kind of where it's like, well, we want to make sure that that all of these characters of different backgrounds and persuasions don't look like we've forgotten about them. And so now we forgot what stories are. It's like every story has to be about every character, and they all have to have arcs, and they all have to be the protagonist.
Hades just released Mysterio's elementals on the world.
Yeah, but if we make pop figures of them, they're actual real characters.
Exactly.
And you don't feel like you're duped into spending $15 on a toy that's of a thing that doesn't exist. Hey, what do you think of this gag?
Also great. That they're going the wrong way.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that today because I do think that's amusing, but it's also the type of joke I feel like we complain about now because we do it too often.
I do think it's funny, though.
No, I think it's funny.
But you're right. It's maybe funnier then.
Mm-hmm. It's probably not as funny now because it's always what we do. But
yeah, but like you actually would have been surprised by it then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, by the way, I also think that the Meg turning into quote unquote the damsel in distress at the end, and that's oversimplifying it. I don't even exactly see it that way. Because also remember she's already under his thumb, right? Like now he's just using a prop he has already. Because he's found the hero's one weakness. His kryptonite is his Lois Lane. Which also makes him more sympathetic in my mind than Henry Cavill Superman.
And it's also, I think, a better version of Superman turning the world around to bring Lois back.
Yes, it is. And he has that same moment where he gets really angry.
Yeah.
And then, because it's within the rules he's already established.
Exactly. It doesn't feel as much like a Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, or like, now that he's done that, he feels ultra supremely powerful. Like, he can't keep pulling that out of his hat. And also, when he decides not to be a god at the end, you know, now if you made anything else after this, the status quo moving forward is he is mortal, and he would, I mean, you know, when you say he doesn't have a weakness, like, but he's not a god, so like you have to be able to kill him. It's not like he's not Superman. He's not actually Superman. He's not indestructible. Maybe he is.
Yeah, not Superman, you know.
I guess he might be indestructible. We're not really told.
I also like this is, I guess you could say, a trope. The hero's depowered that still goes to fight the villain. That's something I always like.
I go back and forth on it. Like, sometimes I get annoyed when we take superheroes' powers away.
Well, I guess, I mean, yeah, that I can agree with.
Just because it feels a little bit, kind of overdone, and like you got to get rid of the initial premise so there are stakes. Sometimes it feels like that.
No, that's fair.
I don't guess I mind it here. You know what is odd though?
What's that?
It's odd that when Meg's life is threatened, and she's got this deal with Hades where if Hercules loses his powers for 24 hours so he can take over the world, Meg won't be harmed. And instead of there being like a spell around her where nothing bad can happen to her, he just gets his powers back because she gets hurt? It's kind of weird that was the interpretation of it. Like, I don't think Hades thought that through.
No, he definitely did not.
He didn't think that through. Why didn't he just set it? Because he seems pretty all-powerful. Why didn't he just set it up where she has Mario-esque invincibility for 24 hours. She's got, like, star power, and nothing can break her, and Hercules doesn't have his powers. So, like, that feels a little too easy as just a way in that moment for him to get his powers back, right? Like, the timing is kind of easy.
Well, especially because he also sends Kronos here to destroy the city that she's in.
Yeah. So he has to know that he's putting his whole plot in danger, because if she dies or even gets injured, Hercules gets his powers back, and then he's gonna do exactly what he does. He's gonna go stop the villain.
You got too cocky.
Matthew Bass, this was also kind of my big question through the whole thing, and I hadn't brought this up yet, but I'm glad he mentioned. He says, why can't Hades just kill Hercules himself? Why do the deal thing at all? I go even back farther than that. Why send your minions?
I'm gonna guess because they can sneak in to get the baby easier than he could.
Okay. Okay, but why not have them sneak in to get the baby, bring the baby out, poof in, and then kill him? Like,
Yeah,
that's an unfortunate trope, right?
Yeah.
Of like, I trusted my minions. Oh, and that's also Lion King.
I was about to say it's very Scar, yeah.
Isn't it?
When I also said earlier, like
it's
they
the
are
hyenas.
Yeah.
Right, but they're like the hyenas also in a plot point. I didn't even think about that. Where they're supposed to kill is this what you were talking about? Where they're supposed to kill Simba, and they tell Scar that they killed him, and then Simba comes back as an adult, and he's like, "Oh, you said you killed him." Like, it's the exact same plot point. Dan's Den says, because then there wouldn't be a movie.
That's right.
Well, that's
and
true,
then we'd
but
be sad.
You can plot it in such a way where Hades' villain plot isn't full of holes. And I didn't realize that it was as holy as it is becoming as we're talking about.
I mean, he is a god.
That's not what I was talking about.
I know, but it was right there.
Hi, DJ. Good to see you, man. DJ's in an airport, so he's watching us.
Oh, nice. Hi, DJ. Oh yeah, and I should get to that last that first super chat. Really.
Otherwise, Chewbacca's lover might just unsubscribe.
So Chewbacca's lover gives $5. He says, "How bad will the live-action remake be? Ariana Grande is going to be Meg, not a joke. Also, Tom Holland is rumored to be Hercules. I didn't think there was actual casting.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But if there is,
I heard somebody else mention Holland too, and I didn't know if that was just a rumor.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe people also think that because the Russos are producing it. I don't know.
Yeah.
That and we cast Tom Holland and a lot of stuff. But I'm sure the remake will be bad, so...
But they haven't made a good one in a very long time. Like, I don't trust any of that.
No.
And I think the Russos' comment that they want to make it like a TikTok musical is baffling.
Yeah, and I like Guy Ritchie, but he's using these Disney remakes to get a little money in his pocket, and then he's going to make real movies.
I don't think you can hear a name, any name. Scorsese could come on one. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think you could hear any name and trust it and think, oh, maybe this one will be good after Favreau with Lion King.
Yeah.
Like, stop it.
He made the remake of Aladdin and then went off and made, like, 8 really good movies. Because it's just a money job. Like, that's all it is.
Yeah, and I don't know that you can exactly begrudge that, but...
No, because he went on and made really good movies with the money that he made from that, so good on him. But
that space shot there was also very Donner Superman. I just want to throw that out there.
If only he threw them into some glass. Yeah.
I know. I had that thought, too.
I also like how we use this with the fates for attention.
Yeah, the kind of like destiny versus free will thing with this movie is like very lucid in the background, and that's not really what the movie's about. It's kind of just like you said, the fates are here because it's a Greek mythology thing, and it creates this sense of tension and this kind of just like surreal quality of if somebody's gonna die, they're gonna cut a cord because that's what's in the myth. Mm-hmm. You know, like when they predict the future, they're not even really predicting the future. Like they go, well, there's 2 possible outcomes. Well, which one is the way the timeline is going right now is going to happen? Well, I don't know. If Hercules is allowed to be around and is a god, you lose. Okay, well, what actually happens? I don't know. This is what will happen. If like that's not really how predicting the future works.
But Cap, they know.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you know that they know.
I mean, they could say like there are only. I don't know. I was gonna say. I guess you could say there's only like 2 possible outcomes. You could do the sort of like Doctor Strange thing. But typically the way the fates are used is, they see the future and this is the outcome. And then maybe you can change it if they tell you what it is. But it is kind of weird for them to give you two possible outcomes. Or is that them just not breaking their rules? Where it's like, you will lose, but we'll tell you how you lose. They don't really present it that way, so I don't know.
Yeah. They're like, there'll be a really good movie if we tell them this, so we're going to do that.
I like what he says, is there a downside to this?
Yeah. Okay.
But I can see why people are irritated that he is really calculating, but he's not really thinking his own plan through well enough. Some of that I had not considered well enough. This is right out of Little Mermaid, by the way.
Just these shots?
So specifically his swimming in an orb and getting old and decrepit.
Oh, sure.
That is a shot right out of that movie. Because of the mer people that get turned into like sad, pathetic things.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's one I don't go back to as often, so I forgot about that entirely.
So I have twin 3-year-old girls.
Of course.
So that movie is on weekly in our house. And my daughter Selena is currently wearing an Ariel mermaid pajama thing in bed right now.
Well, I have a redheaded little sister.
She's a mermaid on a daily basis, Austin.
I have a redheaded little sister, but she always liked 3 more. She only watched that one.
What?
So yeah, I don't know.
Unseen Hand says, a poor unfortunate soul. Now there's a good villain song.
That is a good villain song.
Poor unfortunate soul.
It's not as good as Be Prepared, but
it's not, but it's great. No, Be Prepared is the most top tier Disney villain song.
Yeah, that's the best song in The Lion King. It's so good.
I do like that soundtrack better than you do, but
I think either way, I do think that is just the best song.
I think Circle of Life is just a killer opening.
Sure. My issue with the Lion King soundtrack is also I like all the Elton John versions better too.
Yeah. That's true. That's a really good album.
It's all the worst versions in the movie.
So can we talk for a minute about typical tropes and motifs from superhero things that this doesn't do? It doesn't have the hero directly comparing or the villain directly comparing himself to the hero. We are the same, you and I, and offering a chance for the hero to join him. Which it absolutely could have had and doesn't have, despite the fact that Gene Siskel said in his review that happens. I don't know what movie he was watching, but he says that it's very strange.
Yeah, you sent me that review and I was like, what? What is he smoking? Cigarettes?
Thanks, Rip Torn.
You did it, my boy. You dodged a ball.
Also, I have this really stupid thing with this movie, Austin, that I didn't mention earlier, which is I think the baby version of Hercules is so cute. I kind of wish half the movie was about that.
Little Hercules?
Yeah, he's funny.
Absolutely.
Just have him palling around with Pegasus. Once he grows up, he's generic. I want baby Hercules, the movie.
Don't worry, it'll be a much bigger part of the remake.
No, I'm sure, because that remake will be 2.5 hours long.
And because we got to sell the baby Hercules and Pegasus merch.
We won't get to the Jarrell hologram until an hour and a half into that movie.
Yep.
And they'll incorporate a bunch of real Greek mythology stuff, but also still try to have some of the big memorable fun bits from this, and it'll be anachronistic and it won't fit together at all.
And it'll be a modern superhero film in the worst ways.
Yeah. Oh, one gag I liked a lot that I totally meant to mention and forgot is there's and I mentioned this to you off camera, Austin, but Hades has this bit where he says we're don't worry, we're at halftime, we're at the halfway point.
Yeah.
At exactly the halfway point in the movie. I went and checked the timestamp and I couldn't even believe it. I was like, that's awesome.
That's so good. Of course, Danny DeVito can only get with Aphrodite.
Finally, Phil gets to make out with... Oh, that's a good point. It didn't even occur to me that that's who that was. Yeah, we don't really do anything with the other gods.
No, but you can tell for the most part who they all are. Which
if
is
you're really
neat.
thinking about it, yeah. And Hermes is crazy casting.
Yeah, and he's great. This part always gets me. It shouldn't, but it does. It makes me so happy. It's so feel good. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like whoever thought to put Paul Schaefer in a movie, like at all, is brilliant. But that role especially is hilarious. And like he's got the same glasses.
Mm-hmm.
There's always it's great. He's wearing the Paul Schaefer glasses. It's wonderful.
Hit it, ladies. Whenever I listen to the soundtrack, because this final song is weird in that it has like 5 minutes of score and then you get to the actual song.
Yeah.
And every time I hit that point on the score, I always yell, "Hit it, ladies," and then the song starts. It's great. I wish that the song was a little longer because I really like it, but that's fine.
Going back to that point we've been kind of developing throughout this of, this movie taking Hercules and making it more modern mythology, it's kind of clever at a real base level where because you hear people all the time say like Superman and Batman and even like the Marvel characters that these are our modern mythology. And like whether you agree with that premise or not, it's kind of interesting to then go back to mythology of antiquity and take what we've turned that mythology into and make it that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. To like really own that as an idea.
And I can see the complaint that I think it works because it's not like this. These are the only people that ever do anything with Hercules. It's like a new spin on a thing that especially right then had been dealt with a lot. So like, I want to think, and I don't know if this is true, but I want to think part of the reason these guys went that direction and went, you know what, let's forget about the actual Hercules story and go full tilt modern with it, is they didn't want to be compared to the TV show that was on right then.
That is possible, yeah. I've never really thought about it in that connection because I always forget that that's on right now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, Xena was huge right then.
And I think that's probably why, is because I think of Xena before Hercules. Like I forget that spawns out of that.
Yeah. Well, and they were both on for most of their runs. So Xena, I think, gets 1 or 2 seasons after Hercules finishes. But they crossed a lot. Mm-hmm. Like they had a lot of episodes together. It was like Buffy and Angel, except there was a lot more crossover between them.
Wait a minute. RJ Godzilla says that Oh no, if. Okay, sorry. I glanced it.
If you learn to read, we could get somewhere.
Well,
on
I
the
just
program.
Looked down and I saw Aphrodite voiced by Michelle Pfeiffer, and I was like, "Wait a minute, what? Like that? Did she even have a line?"
It'd be really funny if all the gods in this were just voiced by prior Batman villains, because it was almost Jack Nicholson as Hades.
Well, now I wish that Rip Torn played a Batman villain.
Well, yeah, I wish that anyway.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I wish that in general. But then Uma Thurman could have played Hera.
Something else... Yeah, that'd be great. Something else that's really interesting about this movie is it's one of, if not the only animated Disney movie, at least of this era, that would have made a lot of sense to have theatrical sequels to, where you don't have to do anything to to like backtrack your status quo at the end. Because a lot of these, when you get to the end, like it's a fairy tale, or it's a parable, or it's a fable. There's just nowhere to go from there. And this is a superhero origin story. You could have had a 6-movie franchise and just continuing from here. You get to the end of The Little Mermaid and she gets her legs. There's nothing else to do. So when you make a TV show, you have to go backwards. Lion King, I guess you could go forward, but it kind of feels like the story is done.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense what they did. It just was one of those, like, where they go to Romeo and Juliet next. Like, it makes sense to do another Shakespeare thing.
Yeah.
They just did it badly. But oddly, I feel like some of the ones that would make the most sense for a sequel didn't get them. Like, Alice in Wonderland's a big one.
Like, well, you mean the direct-to-video things? Because I never think of these as having sequels. Like, the direct-to-video thing, they're cheap. They, like, most of them are just badly written and cheap, and, like, they kind of don't count in my brain. So it's like, which of them would have warranted theatrical sequels? Like,
I just mean sequels in general.
Would Lion King have made any sense for them to try to make a theatrical sequel to? Maybe. More than some other things. And Aladdin, too. Like, that's probably the one that most made sense to franchise and had the better sequels on VHS.
That's what I've always heard. I think I saw 2 like once.
Return of Jafar is not
Or no,
great.
3 I saw
once. But the third one is okay.
But like I said, I feel like Alice in Wonderland's a big one. That it would make sense to have sequels. This would have made sense. This also would have made sense for a show, and it had one, but I've just always heard it's not great. But I feel like you could easily make a show out of this.
Yeah, did you know this? Did you know that Hades talks at the end?
No, and I turned it off before we got to that point. What does he say?
He just is waiting for somebody to talk back to him, like he's the only person in the room. He's like, "Hello, is anybody there?" He goes, "Nobody listens."
He's not like, "I'll get you next time, Gadget."
No, it's very weird. It's the closest to an after credits scene you ever get with these.
That's really fun. It really is a superhero movie.
And one of his lines is, "Am I talking to what? Hyperspace?"
What does that even mean?
What does that mean? Hyperspace?
Am I talking to ludicrous speed?
I don't even know what that means.
That's bizarre.
Well, anyway, Austin, I'm glad that I finally saw this again.
I'm glad that you
later.
had a better time with it. Yeah,
I did. Yeah. But I just don't know how I feel about Hercules and his arc, but everything else around him is pretty great. And yeah, Hades has a pretty holy plan. I agree though with the commenter that said, I mean, like, you've got to have a movie. So sometimes you have kind of a gimme with your villains that are not very smart about, like, how they use their minions, or in explaining the whole plan of the hero, those sorts of things. Like, very often I can kind of ignore that stuff because I don't necessarily like it, but it's like very typical of the genre, and how else do you tell the story? At the same time, I do feel like there's ways to get around that stuff.
Yeah, well, I feel like the broad strokes of his plan make sense. Just, I'm going to release the Titans. They're going to take back Olympus, and I'm going to rule over them.
Yeah. But I do really like the question of how does he not know that Hercules isn't dead? Because he runs the underworld where souls go.
There's like 8,000 coming in. We even get the little ticket at the beginning. How many served?
That's great. I like that a lot. All you needed was a throwaway line about how he's not there very much. He doesn't pay very much attention to it. Like, they could have covered themselves with that.
Yeah, exactly. One line, and he throws out 8 billion, so you don't even have to add a lot of seconds.
No, 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 it wouldn't be hard. Not, I mean, it would take you forever to animate it, but
That's the only reason it's not in the movie. Every single issue with his plan is there in dialogue. They just didn't have
they
enough time to
recorded
animate
the
it.
audio, but they just could not get to the animation.
He got way too fast. He turned into the what is it, Micro Machines guy or whatever.
Oh my God, remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, Austin, let's go ahead and go to tweet linked reviews now
Yes.
on both Patreon and Discord. And once again, folks, if you want to leave these for later movies on the program, patreon.com/geekvolution, the $5 tier. And Austin will start us off with the Discord reviews.
Yeah, here, just give me a second.
I think there might only be one there. Unless somebody got one in last minute.
Yes, there is. There is two.
Oh, there's two. Okay.
Okay, so MattBat68, he says, great music, great animation. The main character's arc is kind of weak, and the villain plot is full of holes, but Hercules is just plain entertaining at the end of the day, rating hero. And then Subject 879, or John, he says, the animation, voice acting, and music all come together to make a great hero's journey story. Superman meets Greek mythology that's just entertaining. Rating hero.
Thanks,
So
guys.
bit of a consensus there.
Jesse Surtees has a pretty lengthy one. We try to ask the folks to keep these 2 or 3 sentences, but I will read it anyway. Although the movie does a good job of retelling the Hercules story in the context of a post-Renaissance Disney musical, and the story has an engaging mix of humor and action to keep casuals entertained, it falls victims to the same traps as Big Hero 6, which is funny because you and I were just talking about that movie earlier. And The Little Mermaid, where the Disney style rewrites it so far from its source material that it has to almost be counted as an entirely separate story. But see, now I like it more for that now. Like, while it's a give and take that most people have with Disney, other stories such as Snow White and Tarzan do a much better job of retaining similarities to source material, but remain different enough to be unique without straying too far. I enjoyed Hercules more when I was younger, and after studying Greek mythology in college and seeing Hades as an objective villain and Zeus as a good dad, the movie feels more distant from what I feel it should have been. Hopefully the Russo brothers remake shifts the story to be a little bit closer to Greek mythos. I would rate it sidekick, which is not a rating we have.
No, but I like it. I
did not put
side one.
I'm gonna have to make sure and include the ratings again every time. But yeah, like I actually agree with a lot of that, but I've had this shift where I'm like, you know what? There's enough like Hercules stuff that's actually close enough to source material that I'm kind of buying into the idea of intentionally getting completely away from it.
Yeah, and I think they have a solid voice and vision that like carries through the whole film too.
Yeah,
that I can appreciate.
But I also get just not wanting them to do that.
No, I can agree with that too.
I think one of the things that turned me off to it when it came out was I didn't know how I felt about them going to that kind of material when their bread and butter is fairy tale.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of discounting the other times they've gone to things that aren't just fairy tale, to be fair. Like, my 13-year-old brain was not thinking about the fact that they just did Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is just a novel. Also,
and like kind of Shakespeare.
I also don't love that movie.
I don't either.
But
I guess like they were doing it a lot more then, because you also have that with Pocahontas.
Yeah, where they're just going to history at that point, and then later they do Treasure Planet, where they're doing like a sci-fi version of a classic novel. Like, they're trying lots of different things and trying to fit them into their mold. But like I said earlier, I think it was just harder for me to appreciate because I already had like a preconception of what that's supposed to look like.
No, in the like 2000s, you kind of
every
had
Disney
what
movie
they
before
had.
that, I just don't have any dog in the fight.
Mm-hmm. No, after like Mulan and then into the 2000s, you kind of have what they did after Walt died, where everybody throws up their hands and they're like, just throw things at the wall. And
yeah,
not all of it works, and there's maybe hidden gems in there, but they don't have as solid of a vision for a little bit, and then now their vision is just be as mediocre as possible, and it has been for like a decade. But oh
Yeah.
wow.
It'll be interesting to see if we get to a place where they try to recapture the Renaissance thing and actually go back to 2D, because I could see it happening.
I would love that. I don't know that they will, but maybe.
There would probably have to be kind of a regime change, but I could see it happening.
They also basically set up their 2D stuff to fail so they could justify switching it, where they're like,
Yeah.
look.
Carl Maxey, one of the best hero journey films, great distinct animation, and using gospel music for a movie about gods was a great choice. My issue is with the mythological inaccuracies, like Hera being Hercules' mom. 4 out of 5 lightning bolts. But I mean, what else were they gonna do with the, like at the point that you say we're not gonna let Hercules be a a product of Zeus and some mortal woman. Like, who else is his mom gonna be? Like, I guess you could have had it be like Wonder Woman, where it's where he like makes Hercules out of clay or something. You could have done that.
He's got lightning. He's like,
yeah, he just does it with clouds, like he does Pegasus.
There you go.
We got Hercules.
Oh, so wait a minute. This movie is a team-up film of Superman and Wonder Woman, and we just didn't realize
we just had no idea.
Wow.
It's a real backdoor way to do that.
Blew my mind.
Chewbacca's lover, it's like everybody's using their own scale. Chewbacca's lover actually used our scale, but Carl Maxey went 4 out of 5 lightning bolts.
Sorry, I just had a realization. So we have Lois Lane, so she is like a thing, but then our Trinity characters outside of her are Superman, Wonder Woman, and then a character with horns. So we got Batman in there too. We have the full DC Trinity in this film.
Sure.
Had to finagle it a little bit.
Oh, I like the to finagle it a lot. I like the choice or the payoff at the end. It's sappy, but it works for this. Where he says, where Phil says he always wanted to like somebody look up into the sky and say like that's Phil's way. Then you just play that out at the end, that's good classic stuff.
That's the part at the end when I was saying that part always gets me.
Oh yeah,
I don't care if you want to call me sappy, but it does.
No, it's good. I like the finally getting him as a constellation.
Mm-hmm. No, it gives me that same like tearful joy as like the ending of Rocky, where it's like, oh, they made it. I'm happy.
Something else I meant to mention earlier. I'm glad you brought up the Lois Lane thing again, because one of the big things we just kept saying like she is clearly patterned off of Lois. We didn't really talk a lot about details with that. One of the interesting examples though is she gives him a superhero name the moment she meets him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Wonder Boy.
The Wonder Boy thing keeps going throughout the whole movie. That is likely intentional.
Yeah, and she's like the cynical one that is kind of downplaying that he can't be as good as he is, and then kind of realizes that he is as the story goes along.
Oh, another thing that's really weird, and another trope that they circumvent, because it would be really weird if you had a Hercules that had a secret identity. But in being a superhero movie, your Superman character doesn't have a secret identity. But there's so much in this that's reminding me of Aladdin, which these guys made, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
So that's weird.
That is really funny.
Abic Stark says top 5 Disney movies easily. This is Jacob, who's in my writers group. I love the story, art, and music in this one, and while the message is spelled out at the end, it feels natural and not ham-fisted to me. For me, Hercules is an easy 3.5 out of 4. So he's going back to my old scale. Everybody's got a different scale.
But only on Patreon.
Only on Patreon.
Discord, they were like, this is the scale.
They understand how the scale works on Patreon. Or on Discord. Anyway, thanks.
I give it a 3.5 out of Sidekick. Uh,
How many lightning bolts is that? Can you convert it to lightning bolts?
No, I'm on the metric system.
Thank you guys so much for the tweet length reviews, and now we will give our ratings. Austin, where are you on our scale?
This is a movie that I adore, and it's a very big, defining movie for me as a kid, and I think it's one that I go back to. I watch this movie pretty often.
Oh, wow.
Like at least once a year, I would say. But because it's like, well, oh, I want to watch a Disney movie, and it's typically either going to be Mulan or this, because those are my two favorites. So yeah, like I go back to it a lot, and I think it's always held up for me. So for that, I'm gonna have to give it a legend.
Wow.
I adore this movie. It's not perfect. 100%, like there are holes you can poke in it, but I think overall the animation, music, acting, all the stuff comes together so perfectly for me that it just all of it lands, and in the moment it does exactly what a good movie should do, and that it's a magic trick that's going, okay, look here, don't look at these things, look here.
Well, that's why it's so easy for me to miss the holes in Hades' plot, and like the people that brought that stuff up. That's absolutely true. I don't really care while I'm watching it.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. So for that, I think the movie accomplishes everything that it wants to, and just fully lands for me. So probably too high, but I don't care.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's your rating. That's totally your prerogative. I am somewhere between a hero and a superhero on this.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I figured.
Yeah, and I'm struggling with that a little bit because just for pure entertainment value, I want to go superhero. The character arc is weak enough for me that I'm hesitating on it. I'm trying to decide if I want to go all the way to superhero because when you say it's trying to accomplish everything it's setting out to do, like I agreed with you, and then I'm thinking about it for a second. And I'm like, but I'm not 100% sure what they're after with Hercules' arc. I don't know if he's supposed to have learned the self-sacrifice true hero question, or if he's just proving it to everybody. And I think that there's a way more effective way to do that. I still wish, and I'm not saying it's a bad movie because it didn't think of the thing I thought of, but I do feel like all roads were kind of maybe leading in a forgiveness message, and it's kind of sad that it didn't do that.
No, that's fair.
The more I'm thinking about it, but like Hades is one of their most memorable villains, and then when you put that on like the pantheon of superhero movie villains, it's still in like mid-range or better. So like there's that to consider too.
Yeah, I would say definitely like in the higher end of superhero movie villains.
And I do think it's really clever the way it takes the classic hero idea to the modern hero idea, and it's like a dog like chasing its tail or a snake eating its tail, which is really kind of fun where you just put it in that superhero realm. It's just really funny to see a Superman that can go back to Krypton. I think it's really funny.
Well, I was thinking about this too, Cap. I don't know if you had this, but it's kind of funny now because when we did the Superman 78 or 77 78 comic, Jor-El and them all are alive in the Bottle City of Candor.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about it. Wait, have we reviewed that?
No, we haven't, but we've both read it.
Oh, that's right. Okay. We should review that at some point.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a cool box set that collects it and the 89 comic.
That is cool. I didn't know that. But it's kind of funny that this is riffing so hard on the Christopher Reeve Superman films, and then one of the aspects in which it's different ended up becoming a thing through a comic sequel.
Yeah, and then Meg is like such a strong supporting character and love interest, and when you put that on the pantheon of superhero movie love interest, that would be very high because a lot of them are not that great. And I think it's kind of an inspired choice to have her working for the bad guy.
Hmm. No, it is cool in simplifying a story down that you make Lois Lane and Miss Tessmacher the same character.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. It's a
Come on,
tough
it can go
rating.
distance.
Yeah. And then I'm kind of looking at my rankings and where this is probably gonna
Oh,
fit,
I forgot to do that.
and it
Thank
is
you.
winding up high enough on my rankings. I'm thinking that I'm probably gonna have to go to a low superhero place. I don't think I can
Yeah.
go as low as hero, even though I'm not sure how I feel about the hero
It found the way. It went the
of
distance.
the
It
movie. Yeah,
beat the
it
odds.
could go the distance. Um, I think Meg by herself pushes it to superhero.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, sorry, I just updated my list.
No, that's all right. We have like 19 things we have to do for this show. Sorry, everybody. Once again, I forgot to set this up. Anyway, so I'm looking at mine right now, Austin,
Hmm.
and I have put it just in. Again, this might change because I'm looking at some of the things a little higher than this, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. But right now, I've got Hercules in my 18th spot, right under Daredevil and right above Punisher Warzone.
That makes sense.
But I don't know that it's actually a better or a worse movie than Daredevil.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would definitely put it over Daredevil, but like,
And I may
and that's just
later.
me.
I haven't decided yet. But that's where I've got it right now. I gotta pull yours up. Give me a second.
Yeah, no worries. I was just kind of fiddling with it a little bit.
This is all riveting, I'm sure.
It's so fascinating. You have no idea.
I'm just pulling up your list here. Okay, so let's see where Austin has put his. Hercules. Oh, you put it at 4?
Yeah.
Wow.
I really like this movie. Yeah.
You put it just above Mystery Men, and you like that movie a lot better than I did too.
Yeah. No, I love Mystery Men. It's so good. And that was one that I got to see for the first time through this, which was really nice.
Wow. Yeah. It might go a little higher for me. I've just not decided yet.
I mean, I have 2 decades, almost 3 decades of childhood nostalgia that I'm sure helps pump it up a little bit.
Yeah,
but-
absolutely. Well, that's where I'm at kind of with Daredevil. Not
Yeah.
childhood nostalgia, but where I'm like, well, that's still a movie that had an impact on me.
Mhm.
But the problem is, I kind of want to put it above some of the movies that are above Daredevil. So if I forget about Daredevil, it's actually probably I'm moving it around. It's probably actually right under Multiverse of Madness, which would put it at the 14th spot. That would bump it up like 4,
Oh, I mean, that's not bad. Not
and
bad at
that
all.
would put it right above The Shadow, which is probably fair. But I can't.
Probably, yeah.
But just for me, and obviously we have real different tastes and different lists. But like, I can't get it above Powerpuff Girls, and I'm looking at everything above Powerpuff Girls. I can't get it any higher than that.
Absolutely fair.
Dan Schneider, $2 super chat. Disney set up their 2D to fail. What do you mean by that?
No, wait, sorry. He's asking what
Yeah,
we
he
mean by
doesn't
that?
know what you meant when you said they set up their 2D to fail.
Oh, because they went like all eggs in the 3D basket, and then when what was it? It was either Princess and the Frog or it's one of the Winnie the Pooh movies, where they just kind of threw it out to flop, and then went, look, it flopped, and it's like, yeah, because you guys kind of let it.
Yeah, because you didn't really put a lot of advertising behind it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they really pushed Princess and the Frog the way they ought to have.
Mm-hmm.
Winnie the Pooh might have been a little bit of a different case though, because that seemed like a passion project of Lasseter's that
When it was probably Princess
nobody
and
else
the Frog,
cared
'cause I
about.
think that was the last one. But
Well, Winnie the Pooh I think was
like
was
double B.
post that,
Oh, okay, so maybe I'm wrong. Um,
but I'm not sure if that's
they're
exactly what
both
happened.
around the same time, at the very least.
Yeah, I almost put that in a different category though.
Mm.
James Egan, 799
Yeah.
super chat. Does Shark Boy and Lava Girl count as a superhero movie? And have you guys read Batman the Knight? I don't right off know what Batman the Knight is.
I don't either. And Superboy, Shark Boy, and Lava Girl is on the list.
It's on the list. Yep. And I've never seen that.
Oh my god! Part of me can't wait to watch it with you because of how bad that movie looks. But it'll be interesting.
Yeah, DJ says Princess and the Frog is 2009. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it was a couple of years before that.
Yeah, okay. I knew that
You said around the same time. They're at least 2 years removed because
they are. Yeah,
because that Winnie the Pooh movie is the first movie I took Jason to in the theater when he was like 1.5.
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll have to look up Batman the Knight. I don't know what that is. James Egan, 299. Have you guys read Justice by Alex Ross? Yes. I like that book a lot.
And I've not.
Now this is just turned into a Captain Logan show. Thank you guys for the support tonight, though. We really appreciate it. Okay, well, we have done our ratings. We have done our rankings. The only thing left to do now is to reveal next week's film. Next week, we've got, well, and then after that, I have to read people's names. But it's the last thing anybody's going to care about. So, next week, we've got Joker 2 coming out. So we figured we might as well go ahead and knock that one out. So we're going to do the first Joker movie. Austin can't wait. Look at him. He's so excited.
I can't wait to live in a society. It's going to be so fun.
What I'm trying to decide is if I'm going to finally sit down and watch Taxi Driver beforehand. Because everybody always points to that movie being ultra derivative of both King of Comedy and Taxi Driver. And King of Comedy I've seen, but I've not seen all of Taxi Driver.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting idea. I guess it's probably a good idea to do that.
Yeah. I don't know how that's going to sway me, you know, like how much it's going to hurt or help my experience with that. But you know, if it's true that it's as influenced by that movie, how if you want to think of it as, you know, too derivative or knockoff or just, you know, in that vein, whatever. But I did think it took maybe one too many cues from King of Comedy, so I imagine I'll have the same thing the other way. But
yeah, and I have the same thing where I've seen King of Comedy but not Taxi Driver, but I'll try to do that before next week.
That movie is so good.
But I saw Joker first, and
yeah, me too.
Didn't like it on a first viewing either.
Oh, so. even without knowing that, yeah. And yeah. I liked it quite a bit on a first viewing, and I have not appreciated it as much every time I've seen it. That's diplomatic. I've liked it less every time.
Yeah, man, it's fair. A lot of people like that movie. So, you don't have to be defensive. It's all good.
Yeah. No, I just, like, I feel like the seams are showing the more I'm seeing it. We'll see. And I watched it a couple months ago, but we'll see if you know, watching it again and you know, doing some background and just, sometimes having different viewings, you have different experiences with it. So, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
It just kind of felt like I was trying too hard this last time I saw it.
I mean, that was what I got.
Felt kind of Oscar-beaty.
That was what I got from the trailers, and I was like, "Oh, this is exactly the movie they sold." So, I mean, I guess that's good. But yeah, we'll get into it next week. I will not see Joker 2, but
you're just not gonna go?
No, I just don't care enough.
Yeah. Well, I might be reviewing that by myself then, folks, because I don't know who else we've got that is going to care enough to go to the theater and see that.
Make John do it.
I might be a lone wolf. Yeah, but John doesn't always want to go to the theater.
He skipped Godzilla -1, and there was something, I think it was Twisters he saw, so make him see it.
I'll try. Yeah, that's not a movie I feel like I should take Jason to.
Yeah,
I'm probably not gonna do
I don't
that.
know.
Although I did let him watch Penguins, so
I mean, that's probably more graphic, but it's at least good.
yeah, that's the thing. Well, folks, thanks a lot for watching. Really appreciate you. Hope you enjoyed it. We're gonna go ahead and get going here. But first, as I always do, I've got to read down all of the names of the Patreon producers. That's one of the perks that you get as a $10 Patreon producer. And I had the page up, but now it's gone, so I have to pull this up again. It seems like every other time, Austin, I'm dealing with this. There's a lot of stalling happening on the program this evening. Anyway, thanks to all of our patrons and all of our viewers just for being here. Appreciate you guys. But we especially want to single out our Patreon producers, including Breezy Hemi, Jesse Surtees, Chewbacca's Lover, Dr. Hello, Goofster123, Joe Turner, Joe Gira, John Michael McLean, Super Billy, Vic Apocalypse, Victor, Abic Stark, Adam March, Damon Begay, Hot Soup, Invisipig, John Sandoval, Kareem Roberts, Kate, Matt Bat 68, Matthew Brody, Michael Martin, Miguel Rodriguez, This Guy the Day Ghost, Unknown Passenger, and Wendell Jones.
Wendell Jones?
Yeah.
You mean Hercules? There we bookended.
Brilliant. Just brilliant. All right, thanks, guys. Sure appreciate you. We'll see you again next time. I was Captain Logan, and this was Austin the Day Ghost. This will date this, but join me tomorrow if you're so inclined. I'm going to do another 12-hour marathon stream for Smallville. We're in the back half of season 6, and so I'm going to go to bed and get up, and after lunch, I'm right back at it. So pop in, hang out with me, and I'll have John, I'll have Robert for some of it, hopefully. I haven't talked to him yet, but I'm sure he'll pop in. And thanks for being here, guys. In the meantime, I was Captain Logan, and this was The Day Ghost.
See ya, folks.